My name is Sienna, and I'm 31 years old. If you had met me a year ago, you probably would have thought I led a simple, quiet life, and to be fair, you'd be right. I wasn't loud or flashy. I didn't chase attention or drama. All I ever wanted was peace, stability, and a place that felt like mine. A place where I could just exist without constantly proving my worth. I lived in a modest suburb just outside Portland, Oregon, in a two-bedroom home my husband Torin and I had recently bought. It had white shutters, a small porch with two chairs, and a backyard where we dreamed of planting lemon trees. The house cost us $450,000, our biggest purchase ever. But every cent came from hard work, long nights, and patient saving. Torin works as a structural engineer, dependable and brilliant. I run a small event planning business from home. We're not rich, but we're secure. And that house, it wasn't just walls and floors. It was our future. Especially now, when I was already 36 weeks pregnant. Over 8 months along, swollen ankles and an aching back were my daily companions, but there was still a flicker of joy in me. I was going to be a mother. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something truly mine. Torin was my calm in every storm. He never raised his voice. He never dismissed my feelings. He held me when I cried, listened when I couldn't speak, and loved me when I felt completely unlovable. Being with him was the first time I had known what emotional safety felt like. Because growing up, that word didn't exist for me. I was the eldest daughter in a household that looked perfect from the outside. My mother, Mira, was always polished and poised, the kind of woman who wore pearls to pick up groceries. My father, Martin, was a stern accountant who worshipped control and silence. And then there was Megan, my younger sister by 6 years, the golden child. Where I was tolerated, Megan was celebrated. Her artwork was framed, her grades applauded, her mistakes forgiven. I was the background noise in their perfect family photo. They never said it out loud, but I knew I was the obligation. Megan was the pride. When I got into college, no one celebrated. When I launched my business, my mother asked why I didn't just get a real job. And when Torin and I told them I was pregnant, Mira just raised an eyebrow and said, "Are you sure that's wise? You barely take care of yourself." I learned to smile through it all. I became a master at pretending. Pretending it didn't hurt when Megan was called the gifted one, while I was overlooked. Pretending it didn't sting when they forgot my birthday but threw Megan lavish dinners. Pretending that one day, maybe one day, they'd finally see me, that they'd love me. And maybe that's why, when the invitation arrived, I didn't throw it out. I should have. I stood in the kitchen holding the glossy envelope with my name written in fancy script, tracing the letters with my thumb. It was Megan's second wedding anniversary. A grand celebration. A night of glamour. A reminder of where I stood, on the outside. But still, that quiet voice inside me whispered, maybe this time it will be different. Torin walked in and saw the envelope in my hands. He rested his palm on my back gently and asked, "Do you want to go?" I didn't answer immediately. Part of me wanted to rip it apart and toss it, but the other part, the wounded daughter who still craved approval, said softly, "I think I need to." He nodded, his voice warm and steady. "Then we go. But if anything feels off, we leave. No explanations." I smiled faintly. I had no idea that the next time I'd see my family, I'd be bleeding near a swimming pool, my baby struggling inside me, while the people who should have protected me stood watching. But betrayal doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it's dressed in designer gowns and polite smiles. And it hits hardest when it comes from those who once kissed your forehead goodnight. The official invitation arrived a few days later, sealed in a thick ivory envelope with gold foil trim and an embossed monogram that screamed elegance. It was for Megan and Jordan's second wedding anniversary, hosted at the prestigious Glenwood Garden Hotel, a luxury outdoor venue known for its scenic views and lavish parties. I sat on the couch, 8 months pregnant, holding the invitation like it was a letter from a world that had always excluded me. The card read, "You are cordially invited to celebrate the second wedding anniversary of Megan and Jordan, Saturday, 6 p.m. sharp, Glenwood Garden Hotel, formal attire. It felt less like an invitation and more like an assignment. Show up. Stay quiet. Smile for the pictures. I showed the card to Torin, who was folding laundry across the room. He glanced at it, then looked at me. We're really doing this? I nodded slowly. Just one more try. I don't want to regret not going. He walked over and kissed my forehead. All right. But the second it starts feeling wrong, we're out. Deal, I whispered, resting my hand on my belly. On the evening of the event, I took my time getting ready. I wore a soft blush maternity gown that hugged my bump without being too tight. My hair was pulled back into a low braid, and I wore a small silver necklace. Torin had gifted it to me when we signed the mortgage papers. As we got into the car, I felt a flutter inside me. A strong kick. He's active tonight, I said softly. Torin smiled, placing a hand gently on my stomach. Maybe he knows his mom's about to walk into enemy territory. The drive to the hotel took about 30 minutes. The sun was starting to dip, and golden light streamed through the windows. As we pulled into the hotel's grand circular driveway, I saw it. The white marble fountain, the string lights wrapped around the trees, the soft music playing in the background. People in tuxedos and sequin dresses were already mingling near the outdoor seating area by the pool. Torin helped me out of the car and held my hand as we approached the check-in table. A woman with a clipboard barely looked up as she asked for our names. Sienna and Torin, I said. She flipped through her list, nodded, then handed us a small card that read, Table 12. That way, she said flatly, pointing toward the far left corner of the lawn, an area near the catering service station, right next to the kitchen entrance. We followed the path past perfectly arranged tables with rose centerpieces, satin linens, and champagne flutes. But when we reached ours, it was clear we were hidden. Our table had a plain white cloth, the floral arrangement was wilted, and the view of the main stage was almost completely blocked by a support pillar. I glanced around. Everyone else was glowing under the chandeliers strung above the poolside. Laughter, toasts, and elegant camera flashes filled the air. Torin pulled out my chair. They tucked us away on purpose. I gave a forced smile. It's okay. I expected this. Still doesn't make it right. He leaned in and kissed my cheek gently. I rubbed my belly, whispering to my baby, It's just a few hours, little one. Then we're free. Just then, I saw her, Mira, standing near the stage in a champagne-colored gown, a glass of wine in her hand, her posture regal and rigid. Beside her was Martin, stoic as ever, scanning the crowd like a bored security guard. And there, in the spotlight, was Megan. Her hair was curled, her gown glittered like stardust, and her smile stretched wide as guests congratulated her. She looked radiant, untouchable, and she didn't even glance in my direction. Not even once. I knew right then. Nothing had changed. I wasn't a guest. I was a shadow. I tried to breathe through it, to stay calm, to remind myself why I came. I wasn't here for them. I was here for closure. Maybe even for clarity. But no matter how much I told myself that, it still stung. Being 8 months pregnant, tucked away like an inconvenience, invisible to your own family, it wasn't just humiliating. It was cruel. Torin noticed my stiffness and gently squeezed my hand. Want some water? He asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice to come out steady. He kissed the back of my hand. Be right back. Don't move too much. I watched him walk off toward the refreshment station. I leaned back, one hand on my belly, the other brushing down the front of my dress. It's okay, I whispered to my son. We're almost done here. But peace never lasts long when you're surrounded by people who believe you're beneath them. I heard the click of heels on stone before I even looked up. Mira stood in front of me with a tight smile and narrowed eyes, flanked by Martin, who wore his usual disapproving expression. You look tired, Mira said coolly, her eyes scanning my dress. Couldn't find anything more elegant? I blinked. I'm 8 months pregnant. This is what fits. Martin glanced over my shoulder as if bored already. Well, it's Megan's big night. We all have to make sacrifices. I frowned, confused. Sacrifices? Mira stepped closer, her voice dropping into a clipped, polished tone. We're going a little over budget. Florals, catering, last-minute decor, things add up. It would mean a lot if you contributed. Contributed? I echoed. Martin jumped in, matter of fact. $10,000. That should cover it. I stared at them both, mouth falling open. You're asking me for $10,000? Right now? At this event? It's your sister's anniversary, Mira snapped. We've already paid for the venue. The least you can do is help make it memorable. I wasn't even told about this, I said, my voice beginning to rise. No one discussed this with me. It's always something with you, Sienna, Martin said sharply. You're being selfish, Mira added. It's not even about the money. It's about showing support for your sister. I shook my head slowly, in disbelief. Support? You've ignored me since I got here. You've ignored me my whole life. Myra's eyes turned to slits. Careful how you speak to us. I'm not giving you $10,000, I said, my voice firm now. Not today. Not ever. That was it. Martin's hand slammed against the side of the table, making me flinch. Then why are you even here? He growled. My heart raced. I instinctively touched my belly. The baby kicked, reacting to the tension. Because I thought, just maybe, you'd treat me like your daughter, I whispered. Mira scoffed. You've embarrassed us enough already. Showing up bloated and dramatic. I'm not bloated, I hissed. I'm carrying your grandson. By now, nearby guests were beginning to glance over, sensing the tension. And then Megan arrived, swaying up with her glittering gown and smug smile. What's the issue? She asked, annoyed. Can't you just do one thing right? My mouth went dry. Excuse me? You always make everything about you, she spat. If you can't contribute anything useful, maybe you should just leave. I stood, slowly, still balancing my body's weight. I'm not going to be bullied into. But she cut me off by stepping forward and poking her perfectly manicured finger toward my belly. You've been using that bump for attention since day one. No one cares. And then she shoved me. Not hard, but just enough. My balance wobbled. I caught myself on the edge of the table. Martin moved in, waving me off. Let her go. She made her decision. Mira turned her back without a word. But in that moment, I saw it all clearly. They didn't just want me quiet. They wanted me gone. I stood there trembling, hands cradling my belly, pulse thudding in my ears. My baby shifted again, another firm kick, like he too was sensing that something wasn't right. The world around me felt suddenly smaller, as if the laughter and clinking glasses had faded far into the background. I was alone, abandoned in a crowd that bore my blood. Torin returned just then, carrying a glass of water and a small plate of fruit. The second he saw my face, his smile vanished. Sienna, what happened? He asked, panic in his voice. I forced a weak smile, blinking back the heat behind my eyes. Just the usual welcome, I whispered. He didn't buy it, but he respected my strength. I'm going to step outside for a quick call before the ceremony starts, he said gently. Just wave if you need me. I nodded, and he kissed my forehead before stepping away. That's when it happened. I didn't even hear her heels this time. Mira came storming toward me, fury written across her face like war paint. In one hand, she held her clutch bag. In the other, barely contained rage. How dare you, she hissed, stopping inches from me. How dare you humiliate me like that in front of everyone? I blinked. I didn't say anything to anyone. You said no to us, she snapped. Now everyone's whispering. I looked around. No one was whispering. No one was even watching. But that didn't matter to her. She wasn't reacting to a moment. She was reacting to the loss of control. You've always been like this, she went on. Ungrateful. Playing the victim. I'm not playing, I said quietly. And I'm not giving you my house. Her jaw clenched. It's just a house, Sienna. It's my child's future, I replied, steady and low. He deserves stability. Myra's face twisted into something I didn't recognize. If you really cared about your child, you'd teach him loyalty. Sacrifice. I stepped back, done with the conversation. I'm done, Mom. But just as I turned to leave, Megan stepped forward again. "What's wrong now?" she mocked. "More excuses?" "Megan, walk away," I said firmly.
"Please."
But she didn't. She moved in close and sneered. "You've been milking that pregnancy since the test turned positive. Nobody cares. You're just looking for a scene." And with that, she reached forward and gave me another shove, harder this time. I stumbled back, my heels catching on the stone tile. I gasped, arms flailing for balance. But before I could recover, Mira lunged forward. She didn't even hesitate. There was a shout from somewhere nearby, but I barely heard it. Mira shoved me square in the chest, her eyes cold, her mouth tight, and I lost control. My foot slipped, my center of gravity gave out, and I fell backward with terrifying speed. And then came the cold, the impact, the water. I plunged into the hotel's decorative swimming pool fully clothed, fully pregnant, and unable to breathe. For a second, I was submerged, weightless, helpless, my dress billowing around me like a drowning curtain. Panic exploded through my chest. I thrashed, reaching for something, anything, as pain shot through my stomach and lower back. I was 8 months pregnant. I wasn't supposed to be in a pool. I wasn't supposed to be sinking. Above the water, chaos erupted. Screams,
Shouts.
splashes. And then, in a blink, strong arms were around me, Torin's arms, pulling me up from the water. He had dived in fully dressed. He gripped me tightly, lifted me out of the pool, and cradled me onto the pavement. "Sienna. Sienna, talk to me," he shouted, breathless and soaking wet. I gasped, trying to speak, but then it happened. My water broke. A warm gush spilled out beneath me. "Oh God," Torin whispered. "She's in labor. She's in labor." My body shook, my dress clung to my skin, and my belly pulsed with sharp, rapid cramps. Torin grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. "My wife is 8 months pregnant," he told the operator, voice thick with urgency. "She was pushed into a swimming pool. Her water broke. We need paramedics immediately." He turned to the crowd, screaming, "Call the police. Someone assaulted my wife." And someone did, because justice, this time, was coming fast. The scene around us descended into a chaos I'll never forget. Guests who once laughed and toasted with champagne were now frozen in shock, some shouting, others fumbling for their phones. Torin knelt beside me, drenched and shaking, one hand cradling my face, the other trying to apply pressure with a napkin he'd grabbed off a nearby table. My body trembled with each contraction. The pain wasn't just physical, it was betrayal that throbbed through my veins. "You're okay," he kept whispering. "You're strong. You're going to get through this." Then a voice cut through the crowd, calm, firm, authoritative.
"Step back."
Everyone stepped back. "I need clear space." Officer Reed had arrived, tall and composed, with another officer and 3 paramedics behind him. His eyes swept across the scene and landed on me, soaked, pregnant, crying, and barely able to breathe. "Who did this?" he asked loudly. Torin pointed straight toward Mira. "Her. That woman pushed my wife into the pool. My wife is in labor. She's 8 months pregnant. She hit the water hard. She's in pain." Mira started to speak, but Officer Reed raised a hand. "You'll speak when asked, ma'am." The paramedics moved in fast. One checked my vitals, the other monitored the baby's heartbeat. "We need to transport her now," one of them said urgently. "She's contracting fast." But Officer Reed wasn't finished. "Any witnesses?" he asked the surrounding guests. A few immediately stepped forward, but then a hotel staff member came running. "There's CCTV footage," she said breathlessly. "Everything was recorded. The pool area has full video surveillance." "Perfect," Officer Reed said, already pulling out his notepad. "We'll secure the footage now." Mira took a step back. "It was an accident," she muttered. She slipped. But the guests weren't silent anymore. "That's a lie," someone called out. "I saw you shove her." "And I saw Megan push her first," someone else added. "You were all in on it." Officer Reed's jaw tightened as he turned to Mira, Martin, and Megan. You three are being detained for questioning regarding assault, endangerment of an unborn child, and public violence. You can't be serious, Martin protested. We're her family. Exactly, the officer said coldly. And you treated her like a stranger. Handcuffs clicked one after the other. Mira screamed. Megan wept. Martin tried to argue. No one listened. Meanwhile, Torrin stayed glued to me as the paramedics lifted me onto a stretcher. I gripped his hand, barely able to speak. Don't leave me. Never, he said, climbing into the ambulance beside me. As the sirens wailed and the lights flashed red and white across the marble tiles, I saw them, my parents and my sister, being led toward the police cruiser in cuffs. No more smug smiles. No more fake perfection. The crowd that once admired them now watched in disgust. And me? I lay in the ambulance, wet, terrified, and in pain. But for the first time, I didn't feel alone.
Justice was on its way.
So was my son. The ambulance raced through the city streets, lights flashing, sirens howling like a warning to the world. Something urgent, something precious, was on its way. I lay strapped to the gurney, soaked to the bone, a thin blanket draped over me. My belly tensed every few minutes, sharp, pulsing contractions that left me breathless. A paramedic hovered near my side, adjusting the fetal monitor. She's 36 weeks, she spoke into her radio calmly. Labor triggered by trauma. Fetal heartbeat steady for now. ETA 7 minutes. Alert maternity team. Torrin sat beside me, his soaked shirt clinging to his chest, hair dripping, hands trembling as he held mine. You're doing amazing, he whispered, though I hadn't said a word. His voice was shaking, but his eyes were steady, fixed only on me. You're going to be okay. He's going to be okay. I tried to nod, but my body felt like it was spiraling between panic and pain. I wasn't ready for this. Not like this. Not after that. But there was no going back. The contractions were coming fast now. Within minutes, the ambulance doors flew open, and I was wheeled into the bright fluorescent corridors of St. Grace Hospital. Nurses in blue scrubs flanked me on both sides, barking orders and checking my vitals. BP rising. Get the OB in here now. Get her dry and monitored, stat. Then I heard the voice I needed most, Dr. Lisa Bennett, my OB-GYN calm. Grounded. Familiar. Sienna, you're safe now, she said, placing a gentle gloved hand on my arm. You're 36 weeks along. That's early term. The baby's heartbeat looks good. We're going to proceed carefully, okay? I blinked, the lights above blurring into halos. Is he okay?
He's strong, she said, nodding.
Just like his mom. Torrin kissed my forehead and whispered, I'm right here. The whole way. Time blurred after that. There was no room for thoughts. Only breath and pain. Contractions ripped through me, harder and closer together. Nurses helped me reposition, coached me through breathing, held my legs when I couldn't do it myself. I cried through every surge, feeling like my body was betraying me. But Torrin never let go of my hand. You already survived the worst, he told me. This is the part where you rise. I don't know how long it took, an hour? 2? But eventually I heard Dr. Bennett's voice again, firmer this time. He's crowning. Sienna, just a few more pushes. You've got this. The pressure became unbearable. My body trembled with exhaustion. I was crying, screaming, praying all at once. And then I heard it. A cry. A beautiful, sharp, newborn cry. Not weak. Not unsure. But strong. Defiant.
Alive.
My son. At exactly 2:04 a.m., he came into the world. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. A head full of dark hair and the softest, warmest skin I'd ever felt. They placed him on my chest, and I sobbed as my arms instinctively wrapped around him. Hi, baby, I whispered. We made it. Torrin leaned over us, his face soaked in tears. He's perfect, he whispered. You both are. I held my baby tight, pressing my lips to his forehead. My body ached. My heart thundered. But for the first time in my life, I felt whole. I had brought life into the world, not just after trauma, but through it. And I had done it on my terms. We stayed in the hospital for 4 days. Doctors monitored my concussion, ran tests, and checked for any complications from the fall and the sudden labor. Every nurse who entered the room called me Mama, brought me warm blankets, and treated me like someone who mattered. Torin never left. He slept in a chair beside me, our son curled against his chest like he'd always belonged there. And as I watched them both in those quiet moments, I knew something for certain. The people who broke me didn't win. I was still here. And I had someone new to fight for now, someone who would never have to beg for love the way I once did. 2 days after I was discharged from the hospital, with my newborn son bundled against my chest and Torin holding my hand, we walked into the downtown office of attorney Brian Clark. The building was quiet, modern, and filled with the kind of confidence only justice can wear. I felt tired, still healing, but I knew why I was there. Not just for myself, but for my child, for the version of me that had been silenced for too long. Brian didn't waste time. He had a laptop open and files already stacked. "I've seen the footage," he said, sliding the screen around to face us. I watched for a moment, the image of my mother's hand on my chest, the instant I was pushed into the pool, Martin smiling at the chaos, Megan clapping like it was a joke. Then Torin pulling me out. Me soaked. In labor. In pain. Multiple guests sent this anonymously, Brian continued. And we've also secured the hotel's full CCTV footage. We've got eyewitness statements. Medical records. You have an airtight case. Torin's jaw flexed. Mine stayed still. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted action. "We're pressing charges," I said. "All of them." Brian nodded. "We'll file for assault with a deadly circumstance because the act endangered both you and your unborn child. That includes physical assault, reckless endangerment of a pregnant woman, verbal abuse, and public humiliation." "And Megan?" I asked. "Verbal incitement and complicity," he replied. "She helped create the situation that led to your injury." "Good," I said firmly. "I don't care about money. I care about accountability." Brian looked me in the eye. "You'll have it. But be ready, they'll cry. They'll twist it. They'll play the family card. Say, it was a misunderstanding. Then I'll show up in court," I said, with my medical records in one hand and my baby in the other. The court hearing began 2 weeks later. The room was stiff, formal, tense. Mira, Martin, and Megan sat on the defense side, dressed in muted gray tones, trying to look harmless. Mira even wore pearls. Martin's jaw clenched like always. Megan stared at her lap, suddenly quiet. Their lawyer painted a picture of family misunderstanding, stress, and emotional imbalance during a sensitive event. They called me unstable, said the pregnancy made me irrational, that I slipped. But the video played clearly, again and again. The push, the impact, the guests' reactions, the staff shouting. And then came the testimony. One by one, witnesses stood. I saw her get pushed. She begged them to stop. They mocked her, clapped when she fell. Megan's husband Jordan wasn't present. He had already filed for divorce and submitted a written statement. "I can't stay married to someone who laughed while her pregnant sister nearly drowned." Megan cried when it was read out. I didn't feel sorry for her. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't cry either. I stood tall. I told the court how I had been treated all my life, how I was called selfish for refusing to give away the home I had built with my husband, how I was ignored, mocked, and ultimately assaulted in front of hundreds of people. "I'm not just a victim of one night," I said calmly. "I'm the result of years of being treated like nothing." The courtroom was silent, and when the judge finally spoke, his words rang clear and heavy. "This court finds Mira Carter, Martin Carter, and Megan Carter guilty of all charges." Mira was sentenced to 7 years in state prison with no parole. Martin received 5 years for complicity and threatening behavior. Megan was sentenced to 4 years for verbal incitement, public cruelty, and obstruction of truth. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just held my baby tighter as Torin gripped my hand, and for the first time in my life, I exhaled without weight in my chest. Justice wasn't a concept anymore. It had a name, a sentence, a courtroom stamp, and I had lived to see it. 1 year passed, a full rotation of the sun. 12 months since I lay on cold stone tiles, soaked and humiliated, laboring in pain while my family turned away. But this time, the day didn't begin with tears or fear. It began with warmth. I stood on the back porch of our new home, a hand-carved mug of coffee in my hand, watching the early morning mist curl through the trees. Our son, our miracle, was playing on the rug inside, clapping his hands and babbling to himself as sunlight poured through the windows. We had named him Asher, which meant happy and blessed. And he was. He was the peace we'd never known, the beginning of everything good. After the court verdict, Torin and I decided not to return to the house where all the pain lived. Instead, we moved into a small cottage just outside the city, a place with creaky floors, wildflowers along the fence, and a little garden patch Torin tended on Sundays. It wasn't huge. It wasn't luxurious. But it was ours. No shadows. No silence. No expectations. Just space to breathe.
To heal.
To begin again. Torin adjusted his work hours to spend more time at home. I resumed my event planning slowly, working with clients who respected me, not the kind that judged my background or tried to exploit my time. And in that quiet, we built new traditions. Friday night homemade pizza. Saturday park walks. Sunday pancakes with way too much syrup. There were hard nights when I'd still hear Myra's voice in my head, accusing, dismissing. Moments when I'd wake up from dreams of falling, of drowning, of being pushed. But Torin would wrap his arm around me, and Asher's tiny feet would pad across the floor into our room, and everything sharp would soften again. I didn't just survive my family's betrayal. I rewrote the meaning of family. I chose kindness, chose boundaries,
Chose peace.
and on Asher's first birthday, we did something simple, something honest. We built a small bonfire in the backyard just after sunset. Torin lit it while Asher toddled nearby in his dinosaur pajamas, holding a flashlight like it was a magic wand. We roasted marshmallows, wrapped ourselves in blankets, and let the soft night settle around us. I sipped my coffee, leaned back in a lawn chair, and looked up at the stars. And then, quietly, more to myself than anyone else, I said, "They broke me once. But I built something stronger from the pieces." Torin turned to me and smiled. "You didn't just build it. You protected it. You gave it life." I looked at our son, now giggling at the flickering flames, and nodded. This is our new beginning. No more hiding. No more begging to be seen. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. I was Sienna, the woman who stood up, spoke out, and built a home where love wasn't conditional and peace wasn't earned by silence. My story didn't end with betrayal. It began with rebirth, and this time, I was the one writing it. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you felt the emotions, if the journey touched your heart, and if you believe in standing up for what's right, then please take a moment to like this video. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so don't forget to leave a comment below. Your feedback means the world and helps us bring you more powerful stories. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and emotional life stories every week. Your support helps keep these voices alive.